Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. If I could request you to please take your seat. We expect the minister any moment now. Thank you. While we are waiting for the minister to arrive, just a couple of quick points. I'd request if all of us can put the mobile either on a switch off or a silent mode. And also wanted to mention that this event is being broadcasted live on YouTube, just for your information. We should be starting very shortly. The minister is in the hotel. Another couple of minutes and we should be starting. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the Honorable Minister here. A round of applause for him and his team, please. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to welcome you to this interactive session on the Indian oil and gas sector, the investment opportunities in the Indian oil and gas sector, especially in the context of the HELP policy and program. My name is Nilay Verma. I'm a partner with KPMG, and we're very proud to be associated with this government on this important initiative. It's our pleasure, and we are extremely pleased to have the Honorable Cabinet Minister and his team present today, and they will be talking about the attractive investment opportunity that exists. But before we start, just wanted to make three overarching points around the agenda that we have today. Number one, when we are talking about a huge amount of changes in the sector, it's an extremely important initiative of the Prime Minister, which is about India's energy security, which is not just about increasing oil production, but is also about building infrastructure. It's about ensuring our supply lines, as well as attracting investments, FDI, as well as talent. Second, it is an action that speaks, and the leadership that has been shown in the last 2 to 3 years by the Honorable Minister in the context of overhauling of policy regime, in the context of ease of doing business, in the context of transparency. That's something that we've seen, and we are now seeing cross-sector convergence. And finally, we see action on the ground. It's not just the investments that are flowing in the last 2 to 3 years, and those are quite significant, but also the opportunities that we will discuss today that is planned in the next 2 to 3 months, 2 to 3 years. In that context, we wanted to play a small video before we ask our dignitaries to come on the dais. I'll request the team to play the video.
India, the third largest consumer of crude oil and petroleum products in the world. India, the second largest refiner in Asia. India, one of the world's fastest growing large economies, sustaining a growth rate of over 7%. India, the 6th largest manufacturing country in the world as per the UNIDO Report 2016. Although India is harnessing the established record volume of 52 billion barrels of oil and 160 TCF of gas in the country, India's energy consumption is expected to shoot high exponentially in tune with its booming economy. But India is critically dependent on imports to meet with its energy requirements. That is why Prime Minister Mr. Narendra Modi decided to call for enhancing domestic production to lower the cost of the energy import burden of the country by at least 10% by the year 2022. The goal is set: exploring the untapped potential of the yet-to-find hydrocarbons, estimated to be over 100 billion barrels of oil and oil-equivalent gas, in an estimated expanse stretching to over 3.14 million square kilometers. The vision is clear: transforming India as one of the world's most exciting destinations for oil and gas exploration, with ready market availability. That is when Minister of Petroleum and Natural Gas, Mr. Dharmendra Pradhan, decided to usher in positive reforms in the hydrocarbon sector, marking a paradigm shift in the country's hydrocarbon exploration history. Oalp, Hydrocarbon Exploration and Licensing Policy, was approved by the Government of India, and the policy was launched in Houston. In line with the principle of minimum government, maximum governance, this policy is expected to generate a fresh wave of interest in India amongst the global hydrocarbon majors. India has finally joined a select league of nations that offer areas for exploration and production of oil and gas round the year. The Hydrocarbon Exploration and Licensing Policy offers single license for exploration and production of all forms of hydrocarbon resources, an easy-to-administer revenue sharing model, marketing and pricing freedom for the crude oil and natural gas produced, reduced administrative and regulatory burden, enhancing ease of doing business in the country. Cornerstone of the new policy is Open Acreage Licensing, OAL program, a policy that permits investors to select their exploration blocks without waiting for the formal bidding rounds. Indian sedimentary basins have been gridded into sectors and divided into zones based on data availability. However, selecting from vast unexplored sedimentary basins also requires the right kind of data from seismic, geological, well and log data, and more. So to provide easy access to the country's exploration and production data, the Directorate General of Hydrocarbons, DGH, has opened NDR, National Data Repository, a comprehensive database of the country's key sedimentary basins. The Indian NDR is one of the biggest of its kind in the world. The large-scale dataset available with NDR includes about 1.7 million line kilometers of 2D seismic data, 0.6 million square kilometers of 3D seismic data, 9,400 well logs, and 11,900 well header data, and other data like gravity and magnetic data, well and petrophysical data, culture and spatial data, production data, and various unstructured data, offering ease of doing business. Companies now can visit NDR and examine vast seismic data of currently producing fields and other sedimentary areas. From the areas that are not under the purview of any licensee, they can carve out an area suitable to them and evince interest in doing exploration and production. Once an area is selected, the government will put it up for bidding through an international competitive bidding process, which will be held twice a year, and the block would be awarded based on the bidding criterion. EOIs will be finalized and put up for bidding as per the schedule prescribed by GOI. The entire world now has set its eyes on the initiatives of the Government of India in hydrocarbon exploration and production. With a pledge to lower dependence on imports of hydrocarbons by 10% by 2022, the fastest growing democracy in the world is calling you.
Let me invite you to be our partner in making a new India.
Come explore in India, where over 2.8 million square kilometers of sedimentary basinal area is available for E&P activities through the Open Acreage Licensing Program. Come produce in India, one of the largest consumer markets of the world, with more than 50% of the population below the age of 25. Come market in India and be a part of the growing excitement and the numerous opportunities in the E&P sector. Come to India.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll just take 30 seconds to put the seats on place, and then we'll invite our dignitaries on the dais. Thank you. Yep. If I could request Honorable Minister Mr. K.D. Tripathi, Atanu Chakravarti ji and Amarnath ji to join us on the dais. To kickstart this session, I would now request Mr. K.D. Tripathi, Secretary, Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, to give his theme address. Sir.
Honorable Minister for Petroleum and Natural Gas and Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, Shri Dharmendra Pradhan ji, my colleagues from the ministry, captains of the industry, friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning and warm greetings to all of you present here today. On behalf of Government of India, it is my privilege for me to address such an august gathering at this interactive meet here in Mumbai. First of all, let me welcome our Honorable Minister, Shri Dharmendra Pradhan ji, who has been constantly guiding and supporting us day in and day out in all our initiatives being undertaken in the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. A special welcome for all the leading oil and gas professionals, service providers, operators, financial institutions, and everybody. Thank you all for joining us here today. Coming from the national capital to the financial capital of India, it is always a wonderful experience for all of us. In the past, we have had several interactions with the industry captains in Mumbai. I am hopeful of more such fruitful interactions today. Ever since the present government took charge in 2014, our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi ji, has time and again emphasized the importance of energy in India's future growth story. Over the last 3 years, the central government, along with the concerned line ministries, has launched several initiatives, programs, and schemes to boost India's growth story forward. To maintain our country's rapid growth rate, it is obvious that we all consume significant quantities of fuel in times to come. All consumers of energy, right from our industries to our people, whether in the cities or even in remote villages, are poised for rapid growth and consequently would require constant supply of energy. As per recent statistics, India is the world's third largest consumer of energy after China and US, and our energy consumption is expected to grow at the fastest rate among all major economies. With India being an attractive investment destination, we expect our manufacturing and technology sectors to further catalyze the country's growth and contribute to even higher domestic energy demand. To bridge the gap between domestic energy supply and demand and reduce our dependence on energy imports, the government is working proactively to ensure higher energy generation from both conventional and renewable sources of energy. We are all committed towards the vision of India's energy security. Aligned with these efforts, our Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas has enacted a series of reforms to incentivize the domestic exploration and production of oil and gas. You are already aware that the government had earlier introduced the Discovered Small Fields bid round in 2016 under a liberalized framework. The bid round was successful with 30 contracts being awarded to 13 new entrants to this ever-evolving sector, besides 7 existing players of the E&P industry. DSF was completed in a record time of 10 months. Already 20 petroleum mining leases have been approved from the central and the respective state governments, and the others will be approved shortly. Additionally, the environmental clearances are in the advanced stage for many fields. We also anticipate that some fields will come on production by mid-2018 or perhaps even earlier. After the success of DSF 2016, we are planning to launch the round 2 of discovered small fields by the next quarter. The new round is expected to offer about 61 discoveries with in-place reserve volume of over 196 million metric tons of oil and oil equivalent gas, which is more than twice the reserves offered in the first round. You will also be pleased to note that these offerings will be larger in size and prospectivity to keep the momentum of DSF 2016 rapidly moving forward. We are committed in providing opportunities for entrepreneurs, and hence those who may have missed out last time can be a part of the DSF bid round 2. Now, perhaps the most important reform that we have taken is introduction of the path-breaking hydrocarbon exploration and licensing policy with the aim to attract global investment in the exploration and production sector. It is indeed noteworthy that such a tremendous opportunity has come after almost 7 years as the biggest offering ever in the history of India's oil and gas sector. As you know, the progressive features of the HELP are revenue sharing contract model, unified licensing, marketing and pricing freedom, and fiscal incentives such as reduced royalty rates, customs duty exemption, and no oil cess. All these features will be crucial in attracting the investments of various, not only large E&P players, but also mid-sized companies and service provider companies in this ever-evolving sector. As the government has opened up almost the entire subsurface through the open acreage licensing program, about 2.8 million square kilometers of area. I must highlight here that the combination of open acreage licensing along with the revenue sharing contract model is a relatively novel concept with very few practitioners around the world. However, it is bound to be effective. It is therefore important to note that the open acreage licensing has been designed as a systematic process that will allow the investors to make data-driven decisions by self-carving out of blocks and submitting an expression of interest. Such blocks will be subsequently opened up to the global investor community to bid for these E&P assets. Under the open acreage licensing program, we have two types of contracts, namely reconnaissance contract and the petroleum operations contract. Prospective investors may study the GNG data related to the particular basins throughout the country's through the country's National Data Repository, NDR, an initiative which has been taken by the Director General of Hydrocarbons, which was launched to provide the accessibility of data pertaining to wells and logs, geology and geophysics, and other relevant reports and documents. The NDR facility is based out of our Office of Director General of Hydrocarbons in Noida, and it was inaugurated in June 2017. I am happy to share with you that already 1.7 million line kilometers of 2D seismic data and 0.6 million square kilometers of 3D seismic data and also 11,600 well header data is easily accessible through an online medium in the NDR. I would also like to highlight that since the launch of OAL in July 2017, about 50 expressions of interest have been already been received for exploration interest in an area of about 60,000 square kilometers. This program offers exciting opportunities for E&P players. Let me also update you that the bid process will start from mid-December for those who are interested in bidding for the blocks for which EOIs have been submitted. Going forward, in addition to a successful rollout of HELP and OAL, we will also focus on a number of new policy initiatives and reforms designed for the domestic as well as global oil and gas communities, which are helping deregulate the sector, facilitate domestic and international business participation, and improve the ease of doing business. Some of these measures will be discussed in detail today by our Honorable Minister. Concluding, I must say that through the recent developments, we are witnessing a heightened interest in India's oil and gas industry among the foreign companies such as Rosneft, Saudi Aramco, BP, and Total. Such partnerships and collaborations are key for us. Simultaneously, the domestic industry, both private players as well as public sector, are equally keen to work together with us to make the best out of the opportunities on offer. Once again, I thank you and look forward to interacting with all of you today.
Thank you so much, sir. As you noted, India is now the third largest consumer, and one of the objectives that you laid out is about attracting investment, especially from global players. In that context, I now wanted to invite Jonathan Solomon, who is the Managing Director of Oalp, based out of Perth, but no stranger to India, to talk about his experience of investing in India and what he sees as the potential for future investments in India. Jonathan.
Honourable Minister, welcome the team from Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas and DGH. Thank you for the invitation to talk today. I must say it's very welcoming to see so many friends and colleagues in the audience. Oalp, many of you know about our company. We have been involved in India We have been involved in India since 2010, since 2006, I'm sorry. The company has been in existence since 2003. We are an Australian-based company. We have a listing in London and we have a listing in Australia. We have a very strong management and technical team who are experienced globally in discovering, producing and financing oil and gas projects. In India, we've drilled 9 wells, and in fact, we've drilled the first long horizontal multi-stage stimulated well in the country. This is in the Cambay Basin. We're looking at tight gas in very large quantities. We have established oil and gas production in the Cambay Basin. And I think it's true to say that we are one of a relatively small number of companies operating in India. Having said that, we have a huge belief in the country's potential. This is the way that we present our project to the world when we go to our investors and when we speak at conferences. This is one of the most recent conferences that we presented to in Australia, and you can see the title there, Natural Gas in the World's Fastest Growing Economy. And this certainly attracts the interest of our industry cohorts. In the Cambay Basin, we have a multi-TCF project called the Cambay PSC. This has been known about for some years. As I said, we've drilled the first long horizontal well in India that is fully stimulated in a multi-stage process using North American technology. We are working to bring this project to commercial development. As such, we've recently had some of the big names in the world, Schlumberger, Baker Hughes, GE, looking at the technical work. Fundamentally, if projects aren't built ground up from a technical basis, then the cost and expense that we're exposed to in industry means that we really jeopardize ourselves in terms of success rates in projects. Again, I'm showing some slides that we normally include in our investor presentations. When we go to our investors, we talk about the phenomenal growth that's happened in India over the last 3 or 4 years. And to be honest, this surprises a lot of people. It is the world's fastest growing large economy. It has huge potential for oil and gas, driven by the need to replace existing production. So the government has responded in the last couple of years in a very dynamic way in opening up the industry. The two charts that you can see on this particular slide on the bottom are comparing Australia's industry to India's oil and gas industry. And you can see that from the chart on the left-hand side here is that the two countries actually run very closely in terms of oil and gas production. But in terms of consumption, India's growth rate in consumption has been enormous over the last 10 years. The government has responded by opening up the industry on HELP, OALP, DSF1, DSF2 coming up. We ourselves are looking at new projects in terms of not only exploration, but also where we can apply enhanced recovery techniques. What we typically try and do is bring our experience that we've gained from other parts of the world, including Australia, the UK, Oman, Indonesia, the US, and look how we can apply cutting-edge technology to new projects, and we're particularly looking at doing this in India. India's exposure to the world is perhaps less than what you might imagine given the huge amount of activity that's happened. This slide simply records press releases in the last 6 weeks that we've been observing as we watch the press that's coming out of India. The stories are phenomenal. The stories are unusually extraordinary. So many things are happening in India. We as a company are responding to this. We as a company want to grow. We want to build in India. In terms of India attracting investment, I applaud all of the things that have, all of the initiatives that have come by the government. The new projects, the new way of offering data, the new way of issuing permits is extremely novel. The world is yet catching up to where you are in terms of the offerings that are on board. We applaud the National Data Repository. In Australia and India and the UK, we can access 3D seismic surveys for the cost of copying. We can get copies of projects for $100 or less. We can walk to the government offices with a hard drive and walk away with 10 3D seismic surveys, which we then analyse. India is fast catching up. But might I say that all of these projects have to be driven by technical proficiency. I would encourage India to look to the rest of the world, even more so than it has, in terms of bringing in the latest technology, the latest ways of doing things, and in fact novel approaches. In terms of data sharing, I can tell you some stories about various parts of the world where cooperation between companies hasn't happened. In Australia, in recent years, 3 LNG projects have been set up side by side on the same acreage, and there was zero cooperation between the companies. The costs blew out from something like $35 billion to over $100 billion, and the companies that were involved in those projects are now paying the price. Our industry is a very difficult industry to be in. It involves high cost, it involves high risk, it involves complex integration of many disciplines of subsurface and engineering and commercial and financing. We can't hope to do this unless we collaborate. The government is setting the stage for us by providing data. Companies, even the big companies and the small companies, must learn to collaborate closer together. In not doing so, we will miss opportunities, we will lose opportunities. We can't change the rocks. As a geologist, I know that very well. All we can do is respond to our industry, which is high cost, high risk, complex, and we can structure our companies so that we can make the most of the opportunities and work our way through many projects. On the right-hand side in orange here, there's my list of what we need to do as an industry to get the best out of our oil and gas opportunities. I'll say again, in India, the government is leading the field by providing open access, by providing new ways of getting access to data. As companies, we must be open to new ideas. We must train our people very carefully. We must look to make sure that we have the right culture inside our companies where we truly have sharing. As companies, we must share and collaborate together. In not doing this, we will lose opportunities. Our company is very invested in the future of Indian oil and gas. We want to be here for the next, I don't know how long, 5, 10, 20 years, involved in new projects, finding oil and gas, developing oil and gas projects, and producing into the domestic economy. We are already on the way and doing this in the Cambay, and we look forward to many more years, many more meetings such as this, many more new initiatives for our oil and gas industry. I started by saying how refreshing it is, how wonderful it is to see so many past friends and colleagues in the audience. I'll finish by saying the same thing. It really is great to be here in such a dynamic industry, in such a dynamic time, with so many friends, colleagues in the industry, looking for to position ourselves in the new phase of oil and gas exploration in India. I hope to meet more of you after this and discuss ways that we can collaborate to bring the oil and gas industry in India really to its full potential. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jonathan. I'm sure we look forward to your continued investment into India, and I'm sure industry is going to respond to what you've asked in terms of collaboration. With that, if I could request Mr. Atanu Chakravarti, Director General, DGH, to give an overview of the opportunities that exist in more detail. That's something was spoken about by the Secretary before. If I could request Mr. Atanu Chakravarti.
Honorable Minister for Petroleum and Natural Gas, Government of India, Shri Dharmendra Pradhan ji, Secretary to Government of India in Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, Shri K.D. Tripathi ji, Joint Secretary in the Ministry, Shri Amarnath ji, esteemed guests who have honored our invitation and have come in large numbers, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Solomon has been kind enough to lay out the opportunities in a much greater detail and with much greater passion than I thought I would be able to do. I will now focus largely upon the manner in which those opportunities which Joe has mentioned can be harvested by the investors. A large number of them are there in this city, which is the financial capital of the country. The fact that India is a large energy consuming country is already third behind China and US, and as the very conservative estimates also show on the right-hand side, it's likely to grow much larger and would be competing both with China and US in the near future. This slide shows the basinal area of the country. The colors which are yellow are the ones which are been already harvested. which have become commercially, the orange ones as well, the ones which are now commercially viable. There are certain large areas in green which lie in the frontier region. We are yet to be fully covered, and there is a national seismic survey going on for them. Of the total 3.14 million square kilometer, there's a large amount of area for which now the data is available through National Data Repository. Friends, this is a slide which is very important to understand for the new policy regime that now exists. The overall policy regime is that of hydrocarbon exploration and licensing policy, acronymed as HELP, which you would have heard time and again. It is characterized by revenue sharing model instead of production sharing model which existed earlier, full marketing and pricing freedom, fiscal incentives, which Neetu would be talking in subsequent presentation, unified license for all type of hydrocarbons, which means that if you're wanting to take out shale gas, CBM, or conventional, you could do with a single license. You don't have to approach government time and again. And also, very importantly in OLP, the freedom to carve out blocks by yourself. National Data Repository sits at the bottom to help you to carve out your blocks, to understand the subsurface better. Again, along with OLP lies the discovered small fields, which are essentially the fields which government puts out on offer. One round has already taken place, and another round is in the offing. These blocks are smallish in number. These are discovered, means they already have a discovery in these blocks, and are also to a large extent also meant for the entrepreneurs who do not have adequate experience in exploration but are capable of getting into production. They can possibly utilize the window of opportunity open through discovered small field. As I mentioned, discovered small field, the offering which now lie before the investors are discovered small field. First round has been concluded. Second round is likely to be launched soon. And it is meant for, I do not want to use the word in that fashion, juniors. In fact, more for new entrants and those who are now growing and have relatively smaller capex to offer or to invest at this stage. Open acreage licensing program within it covers petroleum operation contract, which is full E&P operation, and also which has been done in the country for the first time, a reconnaissance contract, in which one can only take up the survey and, if on optionally, drilling work, so that data can be generated, and it doesn't require any revenue sharing. And if the contractor so wishes, can even migrate to the petroleum operation contract. This is the opportunity for everybody, independent oil companies, NOCs, companies from abroad, so on and so forth. And there are also matured fields lying with NOCs, which NOCs offer in various modes by way of services and other modes which in times to come would be much clearer, through which also people can invest in Indian subsurface. This is a brief preview of the discovered small field round 2, which would see the light of the day soon. It has 61 discoveries, as you can see, spread all over the country. They are in Rajasthan, Gujarat, Mumbai, KG Basin, Assam. It has a very large volume to offer, 196 million ton of oil equivalent as a very, very conservative basis. The bidding for this, as and when started, will come back to you and indicate to you that the bidding process and the entire manner of approaching this bid process. This, friends, is the most critical piece on offer. Never before a country has opened up its entire basin. Right now, entire 2.8 million square kilometer of India basin is open for exploration, for production, or both of them put together. As mentioned, that we have two types of contract, petroleum operation contract and reconnaissance contracts. The details of NDR have already been told to you. It's also open through the website, and you could see through JPG file the details of any area that you could like to zero upon, and subsequently it can be purchased through a very simple process, which we are trying to make it even simpler. As I mentioned, I'd like to take through the process through which you could approach the open acreage licensing policy and put your bid. You may like to study the GNG through the data available at NDR and carve out block for yourselves for a petroleum operation or for reconnaissance, and the submission of EOI has to be given by the originator. This process is in perpetuity. It would be on all the time. Subsequent to it, twice in the year, as you could see here, there is a window which opens at 15 November and another window which opens on 15 May. This would be put out for bidding. And bid submission evaluation would be through a very open, transparent, electronic platform-based system, and the award of contract would take place within a period which is fairly short. As you could see that we would be completing the process of bidding for the bid which opens on 15 December. The process of bidding and award would largely get over by, say, about 15th April or thereabouts. And every 6 months, this process would continue. We have already established what we are saying by way of award of bids in the fashion that discovered small bid which opened in the month of November was closed by, the contracts were signed by end of month of March. And everything was in a very transparent and very clear fashion. And the details for how an EOI can be submitted are not very complex. We do not require you to put too much of detail or too much of reportage about what is required to be done. We only expect from you that basic details about your understanding of the subsurface is brought in. And of course, very importantly, the data that you are offering must be brought out very clearly, because as any growing country, we are very particular about the intellectual rights on the data, reports, and so on. Friends, this is the outcome of this year, which is already 51 EOIs for 60,000 square kilometers have already been received. And they have been received across all basins. They are in the basins which are very prolific, like Rajasthan or Cambay, or they are also in the basins like Himalayan foreland, which are not so prolific and yet not been fully opened. Now, while those who had to offer their expressions have already offered, there is also a very great opportunity for those who perhaps may feel that they have missed the bus and have, for these particular blocks, they have not been able to put their expression of interest. They can submit their bids as per the process as is shown here, which will open up from 15 December onwards. They can submit their bids against the expression of interest. However, the originator here will have a 5-mark advantage. Now it's a bidding behavior, the manner, how you perceive the subsurface in these particular areas. For 60,000 square kilometer, you could also like to put your bid and like to claim this area for exploration and production. In whatever fashion, whosoever wins the bid, by next May, India will see another 60,000 square kilometer of area going in both for exploration and production. These are the bid parameters. It has a revenue share component through a LRP, lower revenue point, and HRP through a linear scale, which is 50%. A biddable work program, which in case if it's not completed by the winner, has very clearly laid down LDs so that future litigation, etc. can be avoided. And the originator has, as I mentioned, 5-mark advantage. In Reconnaissance contract, there is no revenue sharing. The recovery is through the sale of data, and if possible, the originator himself can migrate into a full petroleum operation contract. These are the fiscal incentives with respect to royalty and cess. As you would see, they are now very, very liberal, virtually zero in case of ultra deep water and deep water, and very reasonable in on land. There is zero cess, they are only royalties now. It's very fiscally competitive. Here I just want to impress upon the fact that this table shows the amount of government take for various countries. We had just calculated it for DSF bid round, where the government take was barely 30%. I was also looking at PSC round for various fields where government take was not turning out to be anything between 35 to 40%. Suffice to say, today India is one country which asks minimum from those who are into E&P invested in this country and is willing to offer maximum through a very easy governance system. These are the production enhancement contract which we offered by various PSCs, various NOCs. These are certain success stories we have just put out. There are many, and we are waiting from this audience also for someone to also join the list of these success stories. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you so much, sir, for providing details. Just wanted to mention that post-lunch, the entire senior team of DGH would be available in this particular room in case you are looking at more information in terms of moving forward. They would be available to you to answer those questions. With that, I'll request Neetu Vinayak to come and present about the Indian tax regime, something that would be important as you look at investing into India. Neetu.
Honorable Minister, respected dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen. Very quickly, just to capture from an era of incentives and tax holidays in the earlier NELP rounds that we've seen, we are now moving towards a different kind of a simplified tax regime, where we've seen lowering of taxes, we've seen elimination of tax holidays, and over a period of time, one certainly has to mention the fact that this has been a positive and a progressive change. I'd certainly like to mention over here that statistics have proved where the fact that where countries have simplified their tax laws, eliminated tax exemptions, and improved the tax administration, the tax to GDP ratio in those countries has gone up. Here, if one keeps an approach which is more towards domestic resource mobilization with simplification of the tax policies, it will certainly give an overall thrust to the tax environment. In line with this kind of thinking, the current HELP round has simplified the tax approach and the contracting structure. So if we look at very quickly the contracting structure, it allows all the Indians and the foreign companies to come together, either to bid alone or to bid together in a consortium which could be incorporated or an unincorporated consortium. Also, it allows, if one sees, it also allows the composition of the consortium to change even after the expression of interest, which is subject to certain other parameters. So it gives flexibility with regard to the structure. Foreign companies could set up a project office and execute the contracts, or they could set up a wholly owned subsidiaries, or companies could come together in form of a joint venture or stay as unincorporated and still execute the obligations under the contract. Very quickly, capturing what are the corporate tax rates which are applicable to all the entities. The Indian company would be subject to tax at the rate of 34%. There's also the possibility of claiming lower tax rates for Indian companies at the rate of 28%, which is subject to certain conditions. MAT will apply on your book profits, and yes, there will be dividend distribution tax. In comparison, foreign companies, if they set up their project office and execute, then there's a corporate tax rate of 43%, and a MAT of 20% will be applicable to them too. Where companies come together and form an unincorporated consortium, they will be taxed independently on their profit share and will not be regarded as an association of person, subject to all of them maintaining their respective books of accounts. Very quickly capturing on the business deductions that will be eligible, all your exploratory and the drilling expenditure that you've incurred is eligible for deduction under Section 42 of the Indian Income Tax Act, irrespective of the fact whether these expenses are capital or revenue in nature, or the timing of these expenses, whether they have been incurred before or after the commercial production. Infructuous expenses which have been incurred will be allowed for deduction in respect of the area surrendered. So all your normal business expenditure would be allowed to you as a deduction for your tax purposes. Depreciation on the assets that are being used for the business are eligible for deduction. So the depreciation is allowed based on the prescribed rates depending upon what is the asset and the plant and machinery that we're using. There's also additional depreciation available in respect of any new plant and machinery that is acquired depending upon the area in which this machinery is being used. In addition, there is a deduction of 15%, again on the actual cost of new plant and machinery, assuming that you've not claimed 100% deduction on that plant and machinery, but again, this is in respect of certain notified areas. Any expenses or payments which are made by the company in respect of site restoration cost is again eligible for deduction for your business purpose. This is subject to 20% of your profits, but for tax purposes allowed to you as a deduction. In line with the fact that technology is much required, the weighted deduction is available for 1.5 times of the expenditure that has been incurred in the case of in-house research and development. There are currently no tax holidays, but this is in line with the thinking that the corporate tax rates over a period of time by 2020 will come down to 25%. And as I mentioned, there's a possibility of looking at reduced corporate tax rates also, which is at 28%, subject to certain conditions being satisfied over there. With regard to the service providers, the foreign service providers who are providing services to the A&P sector, they continue to enjoy the benefit of presumptive basis of taxation, where the income or the contractual revenues will be taxed at the rate of 4.32%. So that benefit is very much there. If companies like, and in those situations where they don't want to go under presumptive basis of taxation, the law permits them to offer the income to tax on net income basis, subject to them maintaining their proper books of accounts. And certain services, which could be in the nature of royalty or FTS, which may not be directly linked to E&P, but has some kind of nexus, if it does not fall under the provisions of presumptive basis of taxation, will still continue to enjoy a reduced rate of taxation at the rate of 10% on gross basis, where you don't need to then maintain your books of accounts, assuming you don't have a business presence in India. Moving on to indirect taxes, where we've seen a multiple level of taxes in the past. We've now moved on to the GST regime, which became effective from 1st July 2017. So I think it's been a great, it's the largest, biggest reform that we've seen over a period of time in taxation, which has been successfully implemented. Very quickly capturing what the overall GST structure will look like. If you see the taxes which are at the central level, like your central excise duty, your service tax, your central sales tax, are all getting subsumed in the central GST. Whereas your state taxes, and including the surcharge and the cess and the entry octroi tax, are all getting subsumed in the state GST. So we're talking about dual layer of taxation here. It's a dual model in Indian context, which has 4 tiers of tax rates: 5%, 12%, 18%, and 28%. 5% is the lowest slab rate, which is generally for all your common use items. And for standard rate in terms of goods, it is at 12%, and for services, it's at 18%. The highest rate so far has been 28%. The important thing to note over here is that the petroleum products have been kept out of GST for now, and they will continue to be taxed under the old regime. Moving on to explain the larger benefits to the oil and gas sector. The customs duty, which on the goods which are procured and which are used for exploration purpose, is not payable, so that benefit continues. Also, the GST is now payable at a concessional rate of 5%, so that's been reduced where there is import under the EC certificate. The benefit of 5% of reduced GST will also be available in case of domestic procurement on specified goods, which is under the EC certificate. These specified goods have been notified under a specific notification, so the items have been very clearly laid down. In respect of certain kind of offshore works contract, which is being performed beyond 12 nautical miles, there the GST has been reduced from 18 to 12%, and it's a welcome move, absolutely much required by the industry. We also understand that the cess has been abolished completely under the HELP round, and also certain recommendations have been made before the council recently, which are up for consideration with regard to the levy of GST on rigs and other ancillary equipments to be imported over a period of time. So this kind of captures the key incentives which are available to the sector. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Neetu. With this, it's my pleasure to invite the Honorable Minister for his plenary address. As I noted in the beginning, it's been his personal leadership and vision that has seen so much change happen in the sector in the last 2 years, and we believe a lot more has to come, continues to come in the future.
Senior officials from Government of India, industry leaders, media personnel, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you all to Mumbai, the financial and commercial capital of India, a city which presents enormous opportunities for investors and entrepreneurs to emerge and grow every day. Mumbai has the central bank, other regulatory institutions like SEBI, 2 major stock exchanges, all major banks' headquarters, large private equity players, rating agencies, fund houses, equity research houses, all present here. We have come here to have interaction with the update on the oil and gas sector. Friends, you would have been seen presentation made by Honorable Finance Minister and his team day before yesterday. We have now very strong macroeconomics fundamentals and reforms measures like GST, FDI liberalization, banking sector reforms are in place for sustained growth. Government is committed to maintaining a balance between fiscal prudence and capital spending to push growth and increase employment. India now has growth potential and for first time in many decades, policy stability. In the month of September, we had a situation where the oil prices, refinery margin, exchange rates all went up, resulting in higher retail price of petrol and diesel. Although I do not understand the working of the stock market, I was told that the market got nervous if we would remain committed to the deregulation of oil and price and hammer the OMC stocks. Friends, you would have been seen the cabinet decision subsequently. This is not a government where there will be a policy paralysis or decision that would reverse for short-term gains. This is what is attracting global investors in India. FDI is at the all-time high. Friends, earlier this month, I attended a very engaging and thought-provoking 2 days event, India Energy Forum in Delhi, organized by IHS, the local chapter of SERA. As part of the conference, there were extensive discussion to understand the opportunities and emerging risks in the energy sector, and the key decisions and the choices that will shape the business environment aligned to India's energy future. I look forward to more such discussion and deliberation in future. I am glad to note that several global energy companies such as Saudi Aramco, BP, Total, etc. are showing huge interest in the tremendous opportunities available in India. Several industry leaders in oil and gas space attended the conference, namely Mr. Bob Dudley, Group Chairman BP, Mr. Amin Nasir, President and CEO of Saudi Aramco, and some other noted names. Saudi Aramco has opened up an office of the company's subsidiary, Aramco SCI India, with the objective to boost its crude sales in the world's third largest oil consuming nation. Additionally, most of the E&P majors of the world are now eyeing India as an exciting investment opportunity. India is one of the fastest growing economies in the world. It has 17.74% of the world total population, but accounts for only 5.4% of total world's primary energy consumption. It has very low per capita consumption at around 540 kg of oil equivalent, which is 1/3 of the world's average. To meet the growing energy needs and to move towards the vision of energy security, we need to scale up investments by creation of adequate energy infrastructure. Also, availability of petroleum and natural gas to the masses will ensure usage of cleaner fuels and improvement of working conditions for the lower classes of the economy. Over the past decades, the bid rounds conducted by Government of India for auctioning oil and gas assets in the country have received mixed response from the industry. Further, there were serious concerns about the format of the bid process as well as the time duration between consecutive bid rounds. In this regard, we have extended our support to investors by progressively eliminating irritants that have characterized past regimes and introduced greater flexibility for the contracts. Implementation of current policies are aligned to the reduced regulatory burden and contractual rigidity in the earlier contracts. Friends, since 2014, Government of India is making consistent efforts to bring about significant reforms with the aim to increase production of oil and gas in the country through the introduction of several high-level policy changes. If I name some of them, Government approved the visionary HELP in March 2016 with several transformational features such unified licensing for all types of hydrocarbons, open acreage license, revenue sharing contract model, marketing and pricing freedom, with an aim of increasing the availability of ease of access and quality of E&P data. For the rollout of oil program, the National Data Repository was operationalized at the DGS office well before its scheduled completion date. India is a state-of-the-art centralized data repository accessible through an e-platform where users can access, visualize and purchase E&P data. We are planning to soon migrate India to a secured cloud platform for faster and highly durable access for user in the near future. Hydrocarbon Resource Reassessment Project, a countrywide hydrocarbon resource reassessment project has been undertaken for all the sedimentary basin in the record time of last 2 years. This exercise has been undertaken for the first time in the last 2 decades through the most modern reservoir modeling technology. The total hydrocarbon reassessed volume estimated for 26 sediment basins and offshore areas is 41,872 million metric ton of oil equivalent as compared to the resource of 28,085 million metric ton oil equivalent in 15 sedimentary basins assessed in the earlier study undertaken in the 1995 and 96. The study signifies nearly 50% increase in resource estimates, with discovered hydrocarbon resource of 12,076 million metric ton of oil equivalent and undiscovered hydrocarbon resource estimated 29,796 million metric ton of oil equivalent. In order to undertake appraisal about 1.5 million square kilometer of an unappraised area, national oil companies have been entrusted to conduct 2D seismic survey in areas where no or limited data is available. 48,253 line kilometer data will be acquired through this initiative, out of which 9,367 line kilometer of 2D seismic data has been acquired till date, and the project is expected to be complete by 2019. We are drafting an IUR-EUR policy that aims to explore methods to propel existing oil and gas contracts to utilize large-scale technology enhance production from mature fields. This will incentivize current producers to increase production through usage of best technology, which are expensive and less viable in the current scenario. There are ongoing deliberations for a policy to permit exploration and exploitation of unconventional hydrocarbons like shale oil, shale gas, and CBM in existing nomination PSC and CBM acreages. We are now committed towards the entire gamut of E&P operations, such as discover small fields rounds. That is a huge success. As a test case of liberalized policy framework, the discovered small field bid round 2016 was introduced, wherein there are 777 square kilometer of contract area comprising 30 contract area were awarded in March 2017. DSF 2016 was concluded in a record time of 10 months. In India, first time E&P blocks bidding was carried out through an e-bidding platform. This has made bidding process transparent and speedy. With this experience, round one, we are in the process of finalizing the contract area of DSF round 2, comprising large acreage and higher reserves. So far, we have identified 61 fields which will be clubbed into contract areas. Open acreage licensing policy program, we have already mentioned it in detail. Nearly 90% of country's total basinal area, 2.8 million square kilometer of area has been opened to the global investor for E&P activities, permitting them to carve out their own blocks, submitted expression of interest. Since its launch in July this year, we have received encouraging response with 50 expression of interest for 60,000 square kilometers of area so far. Shortly, by mid-December, we plan to roll out the bid round for the first cycle through a transparent process. Data packages will be made available to investors at the time of bidding. Friends, we are moving towards a new model. We are currently working on a policy framework on production enhancement contract for increasing oil and gas production from aging and mature fields. The objective of this policy is to arrest the rate of decline of old and mature fields with NOCs and to enhance the ultimate recoveries of hydrocarbon from such fields in the order of around 10%. Production will be enhanced through technological and other collaboration with global service providers working in E&P domain. All these are too much technical details for a crowded that will formally discuss in the sector-wise. Complete marketing and pricing freedom is a priority of this government. In October 2014, the Government of India notified new domestic natural gas pricing guidelines. Under this policy, it announced a formula-based pricing linked to the several global benchmarks. United States, Canada, UK and Russia is revised with every 6 months. To incentivize the production of natural gas from difficult terrain, government announced marketing and pricing freedom for gas to produce from the discoveries in deep water, high pressure, high temperature areas, where producers would be allowed to market the products subject to ceiling price computed based on the price of alternate fuels. Marketing and pricing freedom to all CBM contracts to sell to arm's length price in the domestic market to boost CBM gas production. Marketing and pricing freedom to all to sell at arm's length prices in the domestic market for all oil and gas product from the acreage awarded under the new oil and DSF regime. Government of India intends to build a natural gas trading hub that could avoid better price discover for domestic as well as imported gas, with the ultimate objective of becoming Asia's pricing hub. Friends, a cumulative estimate investments of $40 billion is expected in Indian E&P sector in the near future, within the next 4 or 5 years. The total investment requirement is $25 billion in PSC regime. Of this, FDP worth of $13.6 billion are already approved, and the investment worth of $11.6 billion have declaration of commerciality. Estimated investment of $100 million of development, and 30 contracts area are awarded under round 1 of the DSF. Estimated investment of $300 million for development of 61 contract area under DSF round 2. Under OL, 5 to 6 billion is exploration activities, and another 20 to 30 billion for developmental activities is expected. Friends, if I quote one statistics, India has opened its E&P field since mid-80s. Till date, 40 billion of investment is made in pre-NELP and NELP, around 239 discoveries, with exploration investment of around $18.8 billion and development investment of around $21.2 billion. Friends, our liberal policies and transformational reforms undertaken recently have led to an investment of $25 billion being committed under the PSC regime, including the approved FDPs and revised declaration of commerciality. This is the reflection of the reforms. The oil and gas sector is highly specialized and is undergoing rapid transformation due to various disruptive technologies and digitalization. The sectors present significant opportunities for creation of jobs, and as well are committed for this. Friends, we are committed to make oil and gas ecosystem business friendly. Our motto is to de-risk the business, to understand that the industry is facing the challenges regarding GST. I can assure you that we recognize it and are working towards its resolution. In the last GST Council, some of the relief we have already achieved. As oil prices are already picking up, Indian E&P sector is witnessing never before opportunities spread across the value chain for the small as well as the large players. My team is present to brief you and address any concern that you may have pertaining to the overall process. You may get in touch with them after this session. Many of you present here are already active players in Indian oil and gas economy. representing a proactive and business-friendly government. I assure you that we value your support and feedback in India's journey towards energy self-sufficiency. We look forward to foregoing a fruitful partnership and high-level collaboration with you, friends. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for what you've said. Listening to you, sitting in this historical building, I think it's not wrong to say what we have achieved in the last 2 years and what we plan to do is also historical in nature. With that, I would request Shri Amarnath ji for his concluding remarks.
Honorable Minister for Petroleum and Natural Gas, Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, Shri Dharmendra Pradhan ji, Secretary in the Ministry, Shri K.D. Tripathi ji, Shri Atanu Chakravarti, Director General of Hydrocarbons, industry leaders, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, Government of India, I would like to thank you all for taking out your time and being present here with us to make this roadshow a huge success. The presence of eminent personalities for today's event showcases a commitment towards development of oil and gas sector in the country. We are grateful for the faith and support you have shown for us. I would like to extend my gratitude to the Honorable Minister, whose inspirational leadership has been guiding us constantly. His guidance and continuous support has helped in streamlining the policy framework for the oil and gas sector, which is driving the vision for energy security in the country. The Honorable Minister highlighted in his speech about the policy stability in the country, that how continuously we are taking policy decisions with a renewed vigor and with a predictability. He highlighted the new transformational regime of help which has been launched in the country and the progress for which was also highlighted by the Directorate General. The NDR, which is a state-of-the-art, one of the best in the world, has been launched well before the scheduled time. And another two important policies which Honorable Minister highlighted is the hydrocarbon resource assessment in the country, which is taken after a long time. And the resource assessment has almost increased by more than 50% in the country. So that shows the kind of opportunity which is available in the country. The another key policy which Honorable Minister highlighted is the National Seismic Program. This is the program in which the data is being collected in the country for the areas for which there was no data available. This is a program which is fully funded by the government, and this will also create huge amount of data for the industry to rely and go for the open acreage policy. He also highlighted the IOR and EOR policy which we are trying to conceptualize, and unconventional hydrocarbons which can also be extracted. A policy in that direction is also being worked out. He also highlighted the DSF one round, which was concluded in a record time of 10 months. Imagine the time which has been, a short time which has been taken. And DSF round 2 is also in the offing. He also highlighted the various reforms about the pricing reforms in the gas sector and CBM sector, the gas trading hub which is being established. The one key figure which he mentioned is that the entire NELP regime, the investment was of the tune of almost $40 billion. And within last 3 years, the investment of almost $25 billion have been committed on the basis of the FDP submitted and the declaration of commercialities. So $40 billion in a long period of time and $25 billion in 3 years. So that shows the openness of the policies and streamlining of the policies. I'm grateful to the Directorate General of Hydrocarbon, Shri Atnu Chakravarti ji, under whose leadership the team DGH is working and implementing all the policy initiatives of the ministry. Jonathan also mentioned about the huge interest among the international investors and how a E&P company like him is responding to their demands. Neetu also gave highlights about the tax regime and nuances of the tax and how many taxes have been clubbed into GST and which is becoming more streamlined. Some of the concerns, Honorable Minister assured that the ministry is aware of those and continuously working towards that. While concluding, I would like to mention that we in the ministry are striving to transform the vision into reality. The opportunities available combined with your entrepreneurship will transform this vision into reality. We are eager to be part of this exciting journey. I'm thankful to all of you for being present here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Just two quick announcements. For friends from the media, the Honorable Minister would be available in the next 5 minutes in the room next to it, so I would request you to join there. And also, as I mentioned, post-lunch, the team from DGH would be available here to answer any questions that you have around this. With that, I would once again request for a round of applause for the dignitaries as they step down from the dais. Thank you. Gentlemen, the lunch is served in the registration hall, and please do join us there for lunch.